Today's art experiment is sculpting with Milliput. And I thought it would be fun to take an old Harry Potter toy, looks like he's been hit in the head one too many times with a quaffle, and transform him into the Marvel superhero, the Falcon. This is Laura's Art Basement. Now I've seen some videos on this. It's a two-part epoxy putty. It comes in these little tubes of putty. And basically you just slice off little bits of it and then you knead them together, and when they become a consistent color, then it's ready to use. And after about 3 or 4 hours, it says, it will harden, and then you can carve it or sand it or do whatever you want. It's got tons of uses. Some uses of Milliput: model making, sculpting, boat repairs, car body repairs, temporary repairs of car petrol tanks, batteries, radiators, exhaust, lots of other things. I've seen videos where they take this and they add on to minifigures and models and change things on them. I'm going to take Harry here and I'm going to look at some pictures of the Falcon and transform him into the Falcon. Afterwards, when it's all dry, I'll prime it and then I'll paint it.
The first thing I had to do was take my knife and remove all the extra bits, starting with the hair. I found it easiest to do this with a wood carving knife.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Nevertheless, it's easy to handle and it cut through the hard plastic of the hair. Finally, after a lot of cutting, all the hair was removed. Moving on, the plastic on the shin paddings and the gloves was a much softer plastic and was easier to carve away. Finally, all the excess pieces were removed. To prepare the surface, I used a hot knife. When using a hot knife, you want to be careful because
It's hot! Damn hot!
yes, it's hot, but fumes from the plastic can be dangerous, so make sure you're in a well-ventilated area. I wanted to create a bit of texture on the smooth surfaces, so the putty had something to grab onto.
Look away, I'm an idiot.
My next step was to glue all the movable joints together so that the figure would stand in one pose.
Well, let's get to work.
I start by cutting equal amounts of Milliput from each of the two tubes. I just eyeball it to make sure that they look about the same size. I carefully wrap up the rest of the putty in the plastic so that it doesn't start to dry out. To activate the putty, I mix the two pieces together until they become one consistent color. I start by shaping the face and the head. I quickly realize that the putty is very, very sticky. And then I remember that somebody said you could use water to smooth out the putty and to keep it from sticking to your hands. With no sculpting tool small enough to do this work, I resort to using an orange stick, an embossing tool, an X-Acto knife, and a kitchen spreader. It's unconventional, but it works. Here I'm using the embossing tool to texture the hair. There are a lot of gaps in the joints that I have to fill before I can even start to shape the body parts. At this point, I've added on ears, filled in the goggles, and start to add the straps. Once the head is roughed in, I can start work on the torso. I have to add a lot of body mass to the figure before I can even start to do the costume and accessories. I find you have to use enough water so that the putty doesn't stick to your hands. But at the same time, if you use too much, then the putty slides around on the figure and won't stay in one place. I'm going to try and get the correct body shape first, and then later add the wing pack. The problem at this point is that I have no place to hold the figure. I've used so much putty on the torso, and it's not dry, I can't hold it to work on the legs. So I'll have to leave it for a few hours to let it dry and then come back to finish. Now that I can hold the figure, I start work on the boots. I have to add calf muscles before I can finish the boots. I definitely underestimated the amount of putty I would use to do this project. The fun part is adding in all the accessories. Once the epoxy putty is cured and hard, I can use a sander to get rid of any little bumps in the surface. I spray the figure with primer outside and wait for it to dry so that I don't bring the fumes back into the studio. The first coat of primer allows me to see any little details that I might like to improve on. After adding the wing pack, I clean it, and then I take the figure outside for the final coat of primer. The Falcon is now finished, primed, and ready for paint.
Look damn good, though.
Join me next week for Part 2, Painting the Falcon. Subscribe to be notified when a new art video is posted. And don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video.